Yes, indeed, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the First Class, Second Place podcast. I'm your host, Jason Enrique, and with me today, I have a very special guest with me. Now, if you are a New York sports fan, especially for the last 25 years, you definitely know this gentleman very well on your airwaves, the legendary Joe Beningo. Joe, how are you doing, buddy?
Jason, man, it's a pleasure having me here. Really appreciate it. My old stomping grounds in Garfield. This is where I grew up, bro. It's pretty good.
So this is kind of a homecoming for you as well.
A little bit.
Nice. So let me start off the interview with the question that I ask everybody that comes on my show. I'm going to flip it a little bit, though. So the question that I always ask people when they come on my show is, tell me the beginning of your blank story, meaning like where you come from. So in your case, it's Jersey. Ironically, though, we're in your old stomping grounds in Garfield, New Jersey right now.
Yeah, my family's from Garfield originally, right here on Jewel Street, right around the corner from where we are. Mm-hmm. It's still there, the Beningo tire place.
Oh, okay.
Still there. I know they had some changes. One of my cousins passed away recently, but
my condolences.
Yeah, I spent a lot of time here. My grandmother when she was alive, my father's mother, going way back. My father unfortunately has been gone for 55 years. He died in 1967, but. Kind of grew up right here in this area. Played little league baseball right across the street here.
Nice.
When I was, like I said, probably almost 60 years ago. So, originally from Garfield,
nice.
No question. And it's good to be back. Haven't been back here in a long time.
Wow. And what was your growing up experience like in Bergen County, New Jersey? Because I know that you were here in Garfield, Elmwood Park.
Right.
You've been in Paramus. I believe you went to Paramus in high school.
Went to Paramus High School. Like I mentioned, we actually lived in Elmwood Park. Mm-hmm. My father was the superintendent of the water department in Garfield, and we had a house. I guess because he was that, there was a house in Elmwood Park that we lived in on the boulevard.
Okay.
And when he passed away in 1967, as I mentioned, and that changed everything. We wound up moving in with my grandparents in Paramus. And I wound up going to Paramus High School. Graduated there in 1971. So,
okay.
That was my father passing. Kind of really, kind of changed everything in my life.
Yeah, it's funny they mention that because my father unfortunately passed away it's about to be 5 years soon. Mm-hmm. But even though I'm already in my adult age, when he passed, a lot of things shifted for me. And I'll just say this right now, just a little bit of a side note, that he was a huge fan of yours.
Wow.
So I'm actually glad that this is a thing that we're doing right now. The only thing that I wish that he was here personally, but I know that he's still looking up from above, and he's proud of the situation that's going on right now.
Well, I appreciate it. What was your father's name, man?
His name was Fernando.
Fernando, we thank you. God bless you wherever, while you're up there. And God, look over all of us because we need it right now, I'll tell you that.
Yeah, we'll definitely get into that. So I want to know, when you were a kid, like what was the one sport that you ended up playing most? Like, did you emulate any kind of specific athlete? Because for example, my brother is a huge basketball fan, mm-hmm. and we used to play on the courts. He would always try to emulate Jason Kidd, like always try to do all the moves that he did.
Right.
Was there any specific athlete in any sport that you try to emulate as when you were a kid?
Well, the first sport that really got me going was baseball. That was really, because when I was growing up, 1960, 1961, when I was my formative years, that really got me into sports. Baseball was the sport.
Right.
But as time evolved, I've been fortunate enough to really see the entire evolution of the NFL, the entire evolution of it. The AFL in the 60s and then into the merger in 70. So I would say that's probably my number one sport. But for me, it's basically three guys growing up, if you want three guys. Number one, Joe Namath with the Jets. It's I'm a huge Jet fan, as you know.
Joe.
That was my guy growing up, no question about it. Walt Clyde Frazier with the Knicks.
Oh,
always loved Clyde. That's my guy too. And then being a big Knick fan, although they're a disaster, but that's for another day. We only wish it was 1970 again.
Oh,
but
yeah.
As far as the Knicks are concerned, and the other one was Tom Seaver as a Met fan. That was my guy growing up. I was a Met fan since day one, since 1962. I've seen the entire history of the Mets. So those were the guys. Joe Namath, Clyde Frazier, and Tom Seaver.
Okay, and also specifically with the Jets, like, were you already a fan of them when they were the Titans before they
No,
became the Jets?
I actually, it's funny. My father actually turned me on to Namath. Namath was at Alabama.
Right.
I remember it was his senior year. I believe they were playing in the, was it the Orange Bowl? One of the big bowls. I think it was either the Orange Bowl or the Sugar Bowl, and they were playing Texas. And my father's like, you got to see this kid, this guy. I'm like 11, 10 years old, whatever I was. He's like, you got to watch this guy, with the white shoes, this guy, Joe Namath. So, I remember watching that bowl game. They wound up losing, but I kind of got hooked on him. And then all of a sudden, here he comes, and he's going to be playing in New York.
Right.
He's going to be playing for the Jets. So that's when I became a Jet fan. I said, this is my team, 1965, name its rookie year. And that's how I became a Jet. Unfortunately, may I say, that's how I became a Jet fan.
Yeah. But what's funnier is that at least you got to experience a Super Bowl.
I did.
And a
Thank
victory.
God for that.
I'm 36 years old. I haven't even sniffed a Super Bowl look or anything for the Jets.
No, you have not.
Yeah, I'm not sure if I'm ever going to. Now, I will say this. I feel confident that maybe I'll see a Super Bowl victory more than I'll see an NBA Finals victory from the Knicks.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I would completely agree with that. I think the Knicks are a disaster. Look, you look at the teams that I root for. Obviously, you got the Rangers right now. They're six wins away from a championship, which is unbelievable. They beat Tampa again last night. It's unbelievable how well they're playing, and they got a real shot. They got a real shot to win the whole thing. The Mets, obviously, I know they've had 2 tough losses on the West Coast to the Dodgers, but the Mets are rolling. Showalter's done a tremendous job. They're 35-19. The Jets, look. I don't love the coach. I don't love Salah, but we'll see. I thought they did a great job in the draft. We'll see what these guys turn out to be. The same thing with free agency. So I think there's a lot of optimism going forward. We'll see. Hopefully Zach Wilson's going to be the real deal. So I think there's some hope there. I don't think there's any hope for the Knicks. And it's amazing to me, and I say this all the time.
Yeah.
It's hard to believe that the same guy that owns the Knicks owns the Rangers.
Yes.
Because they're so totally the Rangers are a top flight organization. Chris Drury now has done a tremendous job as the GM. No doubt, Gerard Gallant. You can't say enough about this team. And then you got the Knicks on the other hand, and they're a disaster.
Yeah.
Look, I know they've made the playoffs a few times. They won one playoff series since Van Gundy was the coach.
Right,
when he left after during the 2001-2002 season. So,
Right.
I don't see any hope for the Knicks. I'll say that.
No, I don't see it either. So I think that's why basketball hasn't been my top sport for quite a while. Because back then when I was a kid,
right.
And I'll tell you right now.
Well, you grew up during the Ewing years,
and that's exactly my point. Because Ewing and Pat Riley and Oakley and all those guys, basketball was my number one sport. I told myself I was a Yankee fan and a Jets fan, but I didn't really focus on those sports really at the time. It was all about basketball, and then the Yankees started winning all those world championships in the late '90s. And I never really watched football at a very young age. I just told myself I was a Jets fan because, one, my cousin was a diehard Jets fan. He still is to this day. I was a huge fan of the Jetsons as the cartoon as a kid, so I figured Jetsons. Right. And also, and this is what really put me over the top on being a Jets fan. So I grew up here in Jersey, but when my parents split, in my preteen years, my mom moved us all down to Florida, to Miami, and I went to high school down there. And me being a Jet fan and in Dolphin Country, I got eviscerated on a regular basis. But then the Monday Night Miracle happened, and I
2000.
and I was able to get the last laugh, and that was what really put it over the top for me to say, okay, I've always said that I'm a Jet fan, but now it's for real this time. And then how ironic that we're also in Garfield because my favorite Jet at the
Wayne
time.
Corbett.
Yep, there you go.
Yep. Indeed.
Yeah. So, but aside from being from Jersey all your life, I know that you went to Franklin College in Indiana.
Yeah, right.
You majored in political science. Now
that was a waste of time.
Yeah. Now, at the time, did you think that you were going to be a lawyer or possibly go into politics one day? What
I didn't know what I was going to be at that point in time. Things were kind of really up in the air. Yeah, I was a political science major because I was always very much into history, big historian, American history, all of that, sports history, whatever history it is, I was always into it. I don't know. I was kind of in the wilderness back then, so I didn't know really what I was going to be. But I knew at that point still, sports was my thing.
Right.
I was into sports more than anything else. So
okay.
I really didn't know what I was going to be when I got out of college.
Well, I'll tell you what, man. I know that you said before that degree that you have could be used as like toilet paper or whatever.
Right. You could wipe my rear end with it.
However, a little tongue-in-cheek humor here. I figured especially with the way that the world is going on now, with the politics that we have now, you might as well just brush the dust off of that thing and probably do a better job than the people that we have now. And honestly, to be honest with you, and I don't want to keep this I don't want to keep on this subject specifically because you know my stance on politics on the show, but all I will say is that both sides have really disgusted me. It doesn't matter which side you lean on, but I feel like there's other people out there that could probably do a better job, and maybe you could just knock the dust off that old degree and do a better job than anybody else is doing right now.
Who, me?
Yeah.
I'm no politician. Although I will say it wouldn't take much to do a better job than what's happening with this administration now. Right. I mean, it's to me, and I don't want to get into it too much,
right?
But this country, the American people are getting screwed. As far as I'm concerned by this administration, but we'll leave it at that.
Right. Now, you may not be a lawyer or a politician, but I know that one thing you've always been is a hell of a salesman. I mean, you were...
I don't know about that either, but...
Well, I mean, I know that you did the food salesman thing for a while.
Right.
I know you also did a little bit of cars, like in the family business as well.
Yeah.
So when you were, it's funny because I told you before that I drive my current job.
Yeah, you told me that. I'm impressed by that, bro. You driving in the city and all that, driving trucks. God bless you, man.
Yeah,
that's it. You got to have talent to do that.
Right. Now, when you were a food salesman and you were just traveling all over, and this is way before FN or sports radio were a thing. But like, what were you listening to in the car?
Bro, before FAN happened, I was listening to nothing but music. I am a big music guy. Now, when I say that, my music is the 50s, the 60s, the 70s, the 80s.
Okay.
It kind of stops there.
Okay.
But that's all I ever until WFAN came along in 1987.
Right.
The only thing I ever listened to in the car was music.
Yeah. What were some of your favorite artists or groups that?
Oh my God! I mean, I'm into all of it. I mean, all the classic rock. I mean, the Beatles, the Stones, the Doors. All the, go back to all the, all the Motown stuff. I mean, all of that. The Temptations, the Supremes, Marvin Gaye. We could go on and on. Sinatra, no question about that. Right. I'm into that. I'm into a lot of different stuff.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty cool how you were able to do a little tidbit for Costello on his podcast, a little bit of Frank Sinatra in the car. I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, well, I'm never too adverse to singing. My daughter's on the other side. She'll tell you. I mean, my wife too. My wife too. She gets a little tired of me when I start singing to her, especially when I start giving her a little Johnny Mathis or something like that. She don't really want to hear Johnny Mathis.
Yeah, Terry, right?
Terry.
Yeah, shout out to Terry.
Yeah, indeed.
Yeah. Now, what was I going to say here? So while you were out there on the road doing your thing, and then afterwards WFAN becomes a thing, and you pretty much started listening to it right away because you were just a big sports fanatic.
Pretty much.
Now, before FAN happened, I know that there were other sports programs out there before, but they were kind of like yaw ho hum. Like they didn't really capture. Like I know the FAN when they started, they had like Greg Gumbel or Brian Gumbel, all these guys that were not New Yorkers.
Greg Gumbel.
There you go. And it really didn't
Pete Franklin.
Yeah.
Guys like that.
He was a Cleveland guy.
Cleveland guy, yeah.
But it really didn't take off until like Mike Francesa, Mike and the Mad Dog, and then next thing you know, they become like a huge explosion. And I think at one point they were actually more popular than the actual athletes that played here in New York. And to my understanding, that you were a caller on that show. You were Joe in Saddle River.
Correct.
And I remember hearing that, you really didn't start calling into the station until Mike and the Mad Dog, and some of the things that they said would aggravate you and it would provoke you to actually call them. What were some of the things that they said that you thought, you know what, I got to get on the phone and give these guys a piece of my mind?
Well, we would fight all the time about a lot of things. Specifically, when I would call Mike and the Mad Dog, it was either about football with the Jets or, now this is, like I said, this is at the time of the glory. Well, I don't want to say the glory days of the Knicks because those are the 70s, but the Ewing years. Right. And I would call and with these guys and fight all the time. I mean, we would go tooth and nail, especially about the Knicks back in the 90s.
Right.
Tooth and nail about that. And but I would call all the time. I was a major call into Mike and the Mad Dog, and you're right. That's really when WFAN took off. That's the heyday of it during the years of Mike and Chris, no doubt.
And I got into it at a pretty early age as well because, like I said, my father, he was a huge sports fan. He was Yankees, he was Knicks, he was Rangers. But what the funny thing is that I never knew what football team he really rooted for, because I remember we went to a Jets game once, and he did root for them during the 2009-2010 season when they went to back-to-back AFC championships.
The Rex Ryan years.
Right, exactly. But when he passed away, and we were looking at some photos to put up for the the montage in his service and everything, we happen to find him wearing like a Giants starter jacket. Now, I don't know if he was just one of those guys that rooted for New York, I root for New York, or if that was just a style back then, which actually is a good segue to my point here. So, I actually asked Ira in Staten Island this question, and I want to give your take on this as well. So back then, it seemed like it was an unwritten rule that if you were a fan of a certain sport team, you had to be in lockstep with the other one. Like, for instance, if you were a Yankee fan, it was mandatory that you were a Giants fan. If you were a Mets fan, it was mandatory that you were a Jets fan. But now it doesn't seem like that's the case anymore. It's just, a free-for-all now. I mean, I can tell you right now, and I think it's blasphemous, I know somebody that's a Jets fan and a Red Sox fan. So
yeah, I mean, look, that doesn't really bother me. Honestly, when I was growing up, I actually liked the Red Sox a lot growing up, even though I was a Met fan.
Right.
I actually liked the Red Sox. I mean, we're going way back. We're going back to the days, even the early days of Carl Yastrzemski, Tony Canigliaro, if you remember him back in the early 60s, he wound up getting beamed, and it basically destroyed his career in 1967. Right on through Big Papi and Manny Ramirez. And, I like the Red Sox until they started winning championships. When they started winning, they won 4 World Series now since 2004. Now that they've started to win championships, now I have I don't like them at all.
Something's got to happen because I said I'm a Yankee fan, and right now we only have one more championship than them in my lifetime.
Right.
So something's got to change.
Well, the Yankees are rolling right now, man. I mean, the pitching has been unbelievable. Garrett Cole had a tremendous game last night against the Tigers.
How about
Nestor Cortez? Yeah. The guy you can't hit the guy. He doesn't give up runs. Even Jamison Taillon, he had a perfect game going for a while the other night. It's funny. Like their worst starter right now might be Garrett Cole, which is pretty funny when you think about it. But
he's the one that's on the higher payroll,
right? Well, the highest.
But it's funny that it doesn't really bother you. But one thing that I do know that bothers you, because I listen to your podcast all the time, anything, and it's doing great, by the way. Congratulations!
Well, thank
on
you.
the podcast.
You can owe it to my daughter here.
She's the brains of the operation.
She is the brains. I just I do the easy part.
Yeah. So, but you did mention on a most recent episode that. If it was up to you, you would give the tickets to somebody that's actually been a lifelong fan as opposed to these celebrities.
I said it yesterday.
Yeah, exactly.
This was yesterday's thing.
Yes.
Yeah, it gets me to you're watching the Rangers here, and it's been phenomenal. But it makes me crazy when I have to see the Yankees there? I got to see Anthony Rizzo, and in all due respect to him, he's sitting there with a freaking Ranger jersey on. I mean, when he was playing for the Cubs, was he going to Blackhawk games, sitting there with his Blackhawk jerseys on?
Right.
What? Same thing. Even when the Jets were there, Zach Wilson. Even last year when the Islanders were in the same position and the Rangers are in now in the conference finals, and they of course eventually lost 2 years in a row to Tampa. Hopefully the Rangers are going to change that. But why do I need to see these guys there? These guys are millionaires, right? Well, let's be honest. Brian Daboll was there the other night, the Giant coach, and Shane, the new GM.
Joe Shane, yeah.
Why the hell do I got to see these guys that probably don't know a hockey puck from, whatever, okay? Why do I need to see what's the big deal? And they're wearing Rangers stuff. These guys are millionaires, okay? How about the guy that's a longtime Ranger fan that, maybe had season tickets up in the blue for all the years and it's got priced out of the Garden now, where you can't even buy a ticket now to go to a Ranger game. I guarantee you the blue seats are probably $100+ for a regular season game. God knows what they're getting now. I can only imagine. I'm sure the face value right now for this round of the playoffs is probably $500-$600 a pop.
Right.
And if you went on the secondary market, you're over $1,000 probably for the worst seat in the house right now.
And that's not to mention parking and stuff like that.
Well, right, of course. But but just getting back to it, and God knows what they get to the finals. God knows how much that's going to be. So that's what bothers me. And they all do it. Look, we see it with basketball. So everybody's got celebrity row. Look who's here. All of that. The Knicks, the Lakers, whoever it is, they all do it now. But that bothers me. I got to say that. Give it to the guy that's a long-time fan of the team that would love to be there but can't afford to be there anymore. That kind of stuff bothers me.
And I'm actually in lockstep with you. I mean, I feel the exact same way that you do. I get why they do it. It is New York. It is this market, and it's all about face value and the flashiness and everything.
Of course.
But at the end of the day, it really doesn't go anywhere without the fans. I mean, I know that if I was the owner of a franchise, and I probably do a hell of a lot of job better than these guys are doing right now, that's a sentiment that I would have. And I feel like that would actually bring in more as opposed to just celebrities.
Yeah. Well, I think when you look at all the various fan bases in New York sports teams. I don't think there's any more passionate fan base, loyal fan base than the Ranger fans. Honestly, I think they probably would go by everybody else. I really do. I think a lot of these people have been there, going back to the, when I started watching, hockey, 1963, whatever it is, they go back to the old Garden. They go back to the days of the Gilbert and Rattel and Hatfield and Eddie Jockman and Brad Park and all of that. I think they're probably the loyalist fans there were, because remember, they went 54 years without winning a cup from 1940 to 1994. Now it's 28 years already since they won that. That's a long time ago now. So I think they're a very, very loyal fan base, maybe more than any of the other fan bases in New York.
And you do have a point, because I'm a Devil fan, and I've obviously got to see some championships in my lifetime from that. 3, yeah. Thank you guys for
I
that.
have no love for the Devils.
What is funny is that my father was a Ranger fan, but he never took me to any MSG games or Ranger games.
Right.
But he was able to get free tickets to the Devils, and that's how I became a fan.
Right.
So, but so anyway, kind of going back to what we were talking about with the FAN. Now, I know what really put you over the top to get into the business was there was an article by Phil Mushnick talking about Eli from Westchester getting
the
a
late
show.
Eli from Westchester passed
and
away.
I know he was a little bit of a controversial figure when
Very.
he called on the show, and you were saying like, this guy's gonna get a show, and it really, I think that's when it kind of clicked in your head that maybe, like, let me throw my hat into the ring, so to speak. And then there was you and a whole bunch of other people that did the Fan Appreciation Day.
Well, really, let me give credit to Mike and Chris for that more than anybody else.
And Bobby Gelb.
And Bobby Gelb. Bobby Gelb was a big factor in my career. There's no doubt about it. He was the producer then at those days for Mike and Chris.
And then he became a salesman at the Fan.
And he became a salesman because he made a lot more money as a salesman than he was as a producer. They don't make a lot of money there, but.
Right.
But, I got to give credit to Mike and Chris for that. I mean, I remember calling that day after reading that article, and, they kind of promoted me and gave me the opportunity for that Fan Appreciation Day, which kind of, I guess, was kind of launched my career, to be very honest.
Right. And what's also interesting too about the kind of the similarities between you and me is that you were actually an alumni of the Connecticut School of Broadcasting.
I was.
Yeah.
I don't know how much it helped me. I'll say that.
Yeah. You said you eventually said that you really didn't need it. You just needed to get on the air somewhere. That's what Bobby told you. And you went to this little WJDN in Elizabeth, and that's where you got your start.
Yeah.
And so
I was paying them to do the shows.
Right. Yeah. And then you actually had Chris and Mike on your show separately.
I did.
Yeah. So I actually tried to get into the Connecticut School Broadcasting at one point, because back in 2005 I was an auto parts delivery driver, and I started listening to the radio because at the time we didn't have any smartphones or iPods or anything, not even Bluetooths. The radio was your best friend, so I was listening to like Howard Stern, a little bit of Don Imus, definitely a lot of rap music. I'm a hip hop fan mostly, and also definitely WFAN and ESPN for a little bit, and I actually became a huge fan of yours when you did this rant with Evan, when it was that game when Eric Mangini blew the game. And it stopped you guys from going to the playoffs that year. You went on this epic rant, and I was like, this guy's my guy. I know exactly he knows exactly how I'm feeling. He spoke for every Jet fan that day, and so I heard of you at the time. I mean, I was too young to listen to you on the overnights.
Right.
But that's what really put me over the top, and I've been a fan of yours ever since 2008.
Well, I appreciate that, man.
Yeah,
that was the Brett Favre year. What a disaster! Yeah. They were 8-3 and collapsed. Yeah. Wound up finishing 9-7 and blowing the playoffs.
Yeah.
So.
Unfortunately, I have a Brett Favre jersey somewhere in my house. I probably should get rid of it.
Yeah, well, you probably should.
Now,
unless it's a Packer jersey, then I would say.
Unfortunately,
if it's a Brett Favre Packer jersey, you can keep it. A Brett Favre Jet jersey, no.
Now, so you get into the business,
right?
And you started on the overnights. You did it for
nine and a half years in the overnight.
From starting in 1995.
Yeah,
and
so those were the great years, bro.
Yeah, and back then, I understand those shows were all about the callers. Back
about it.
In the overnights, you didn't have to worry about ratings, or you could spend like 5 minutes with a caller. And so one of the things, besides that, one of the things I always wanted to know about is, clearly New York City back then wasn't as safe as it is now. It's kind of a tourist attraction.
Well, I don't know if I would agree with that. I think it was a lot safer than it is now, but that's another story.
Well, the point that I'm trying to get at is that, like, for you personally, when you went to the overnights and you did your show, because it was back in Queens back then, right? The studios.
Astoria.
Yeah. So when you would go into the city and doing the overnight shows, like, especially how dangerous it was back then, were you ever worried about anything like when you finished a show and you would come back outside and your car was?
You know what? I was in this. I did even before I started doing radio, but my 25 years of radio and all the commuting into Manhattan and all the overnights and leaving at 5:30, 6 o'clock in the morning was whatever. Never did I ever feel unsafe.
Okay.
Never. Not in Astoria, not in Manhattan. Okay. Never.
But you
I don't know if I would agree with that now, but never did I ever feel not safe.
Okay, well that's good then. Now, when I started my current job that I have right now, I had to work overnights. Like I was starting at 2 a.m. every single night, and it was a bit of an adjustment for me. And because of that, my sleep pattern is all messed up. When you started doing the overnights at the Fan, was it an adjustment for you as well?
It was an adjustment, I guess. But I mean, I was just so excited that I had this opportunity.
Right.
It didn't matter what I was doing, But I would, I adjusted to it pretty easily. I see back then when I was doing the overnight, I went to a lot of games. So I would go literally. I was at the Garden almost every night. I mean, Knick game, Ranger game, Knick game, Ranger game. I'd go to a lot of Net games. The baseball teams, I'd be at Shea Stadium. I'd be at Yankee Stadium. I was constantly going to games back then. And, but on the weekend, when I was off on the weekend, I would adjust myself back to like a normal sleep pattern.
Okay.
To get back into the flow, the flow of where my wife was, Because back in the overnight days, I'd be coming home from work, she'd be going to work. We'd be kind of like ships passing in the night. And then with me going to all the different games I was going to, I didn't even see it that much in the afternoon. I'd be sleeping, I'd get up, and basically, go into the city to go to whatever game I was going to. So, but it was something. Those 9.5 years, from as far as just being on the radio, were probably the best years, just because of the nature of the overnight. You know what I mean? Right. And like you said, I could spend all kinds of time with the callers.
Right. Yeah,
and it was all about them.
Yeah, it was all about like Doris and Rigo Park and all them. Yeah,
Short Al.
Yeah, I actually remember Doris.
Bruce and Bayside, all of them.
Right. I actually remember Doris as a kid because my father would always listen to Mike and the Mad Dog, and she would always call in, and she had that smoker's cough when she was. Yeah. That was something that was
I actually did a eulogy for her at her funeral.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Absolutely.
Wow. Yeah, she was a huge prominent caller. It seemed like every time my father put on the show, she just happened to be one of the callers. Like you would hear her almost on a daily basis.
Big Met fan. Huge Met fan.
Huge Met fan.
Yep.
Yeah. Now, so after you did the overnights, you started the show with Sid Rosenberg for a little bit until unfortunately he had that disaster.
He crapped out on me a couple times, Sid. Yeah. But I love him anyway. And he's really landed on his feet now. He got that morning show with Bernard McGurk on WABC.
I actually had the chance to meet Sid Rosenberg because I don't know if you remember one of your old colleagues, Don LaGreca.
Of course.
Yeah,
he's on now. He does a show with Michael Kay now.
Exactly, yeah. So he does a softball charity event every year in Hawthorne, New Jersey, which is actually my hometown.
Right, well, he's from there. Don lives in Hawthorne.
Exactly, and that's my hometown as well.
So does my daughter, by the way.
Oh, yeah. We actually spoke about that as well.
Right.
And I actually got to meet Sid there, and he couldn't have been nicer. He was one of the coolest guys out there. Him, Greg Buttle. Like Greg Butler was probably my favorite guy that I met there because I got a chance to take a picture and meet everybody. But when it came specifically to Buttle, not only was he happy to do it, excuse me, but he was like, it was like he was, making my day. I mean, that guy just has such positive energy around him, and Marty Lyons as well. I mean, those guys are just tremendous guys, and I'm actually glad that they're some of the best Jets that we've ever seen.
Well, as far as Buttle's concerned, I've had my issues with Buttle because everything
on the broadcast.
Because everything is no matter how bad they are. Greg. Can we tell it like it is occasionally about this disaster of a franchise? And he never does. So that kind of bothers me. I will be doing, but he was a terrific linebacker for my team. There's no doubt about it. As far as Marty's concerned, look, Marty's an all-time Jet. There's no question about it. I'm actually going to be, I believe it's August 8th. We're going to be out in Long Island at his golf outing, so that's going to be interesting.
And he's done a lot of charitable things as well. So that's a tremendous work that he did. And so you do the show with him for a little bit, and then you do the show with Evan for about 13 years, and that was like that was like the pinnacle. That was my midday show. As soon as I was doing my job, because I've been driving ever since 2005, different jobs, different outlets, kind of like how you did with the food salesman thing. And you guys were my go-to every midday. As soon as it was 10 a.m., I had to make sure that it was on the Fan every single day without fail. And you guys were just funny. I love the camaraderie between you guys, and it was fantastic because there's such a difference in age, but you guys are like you were in simpatico with each other. You guys had a lot of the same ideologies, same passion for sports, and you guys just had a tremendous chemistry. And you still keep in touch with Evan?
Oh yeah, sure. I was on a couple weeks ago on a Saturday show. I mean, Evan and I, look, I had some great years with him. He was a great partner. We had a lot of fun. We did a lot of different things with all the different travels we did over all the years and stuff. And I can't say anything but great things about Evan. You know, and I'm glad he's landed on his feet here with Carton. And what can I say? I think the only thing I miss about doing the show is probably doing the stuff with Evan.
Right.
That's probably it.
Now, here's an interesting thing. So you have the podcast going on right now.
Yep.
If you, this has actually been something that's been on for a while, but it hasn't really exploded until I think maybe 2019, 2020, where everybody's starting to do a podcast now. Do you think that if you had heard about it earlier, you would have left FAN before you did, or you think you would have stayed put?
I don't know. I mean, I think I left at the right time. Things were changing. The business has changed in a lot of ways. It wasn't the same. I got to be honest with you. I mean, in the last couple of years, it wasn't as much fun as it had been years before.
Right.
The commute was starting to get to me after all the years of commuting. So I knew the end was near. I'll say that. I knew the end was near.
Yeah, because you would. Priorly, you would talk about retirement on several occasions, and then afterwards, I guess 2020 was just the right time for you, especially with everything that was going on. And you said the business was changing; it wasn't as fun anymore. So it just seemed like the right time for you to go. And I got to be honest with you. When you retired, I was sad because I was not going to get my regular Jets fix, especially with you on the air. But thank God you got this podcast going on right now, and I also thank Aaron and everybody else that's involved with it, because now I still get to listen to you on a weekly basis, not an everyday basis like I did before, but I'll still take it.
Right.
But it's also led to an opportunity of something like this. I mean, I started this podcast less than a year ago, and one of the things that I speak about on my show a lot is I speak a lot about mental health. I speak about a whole different array of things. And this, long story short, this has actually done wonders for my mental health, because I'm a guy that's always dealt with social anxiety and depression and so on and so forth.
You would never know it, I'll say that.
Exactly. And that's my point. I feel like doing this has actually clicked something in my brain that has switched like something I didn't know that I could do. And it's actually led me to doing this network and going to every single one of your live podcasts at Hackensack Brewery.
And I appreciate you doing that, man.
Of course.
And we're going to have a lot more down the road. We're taking a month off from that, only because my daughter she's got a pretty heavy calendar this month.
Right, yeah, and it's no chore for me because I live in Hackensack. Matter of fact, I actually could walk to the sidebar from where I live. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I actually used to go there when it was General Poor's. I don't know if you were familiar with it was back then.
I can't say.
It was something else before, but now it's sidebar. And Seth is a good guy and everything. So yeah, it's not only is it easy for me to do, but it's something that I look forward to when it happens. And not just meeting you, but I've had the opportunity to meet Joey and Clark. I met Kenny in Staten Island. Kenny was on my show not that long ago. Joe's going to be on my show pretty soon. But that's just one of the things that I love about this endeavor, that it's allowed me to do things that I didn't think that I had capable in me doing. And I think as of right now, so far, this is the echelon so far, because, and I know you're a modest guy, and I don't want you to take anything the wrong way, but in my eyes, really, Joe, you are great at what you do. You're a legend, and I've listened to you for so long, and this actually does feel like an accomplishment for me. Not because I'm getting to talk to one of my heroes on my own platform, but to me, this shows that this is an accomplishment for me personally, that if I actually put my mind to something, I can actually do it. So this is actually very important to me. This is a big achievement for me, and I thank you for doing this for me.
Well, I appreciate it, man. I'm glad. I appreciate you asking me. I don't know what kind of legend I am, but I do appreciate you having me on, and I certainly appreciate you listening to me for all those years.
Well, I will say that during your run on FAN, you established yourself as like the unofficial voice of the pain for Jet fans.
A lot of pain.
Yeah.
Bro. A lot of pain.
Now, where did that term "all the pain" come from? Was it something that came to you naturally, or was it something from Lost in Space?
Well, I mean, that's What was it? I forget. What the hell was it? I forget the
Dr. Smith.
Dr. Smith. That's right. I guess it came from there. I don't know. I don't know how. I don't know how it evolved.
I think
it just kind of happened.
Maybe it was just a mixture of both. Like maybe you heard it from Dr. Smith, and after you just applied it to what you're doing now.
Right. And there's a lot of pain with the teams I root for. Although, like I said, right now, between the Rangers and the Mets, I mean, those things are going pretty well right now.
Yeah.
So.
How? Listen, I'm a Yankee fan, but I got to ask you, how pumped are you about Buck Showalter?
I love Buck. To me, he's the MVP of the team.
Oh, yeah.
He's the best move they made.
Yeah.
I love Scherzer. Obviously, he's hurt right now. The guys that they brought in, Marte, Canna, Escobar, terrific. I mean, obviously, Lindor's finally, living up to his contract now. Alonso's great, McNeil. But to me, it's all about Buck. Let's be honest. Mickey Callaway was a disaster. He was more interested in, hitting on, lady sports riders than anything else. Luis Rojas was completely over his head. Nice guy, but not a manager. Look, Beltran should have been the manager. He got hosed, Beltran. I mean, they made him the scapegoat for that whole Houston, cheating nonsense that went on with the Astros. Everybody else got back, and I guess he's doing Yankee broadcasts now. But, Rojas was way over his head. He was no major league manager. They got a real manager now, and I think Buck is worth. I don't look at baseball managers like I look at coaches in football, because to me, a head coach in football, you have to have one if you're going to win.
Yes.
It's probably the most important, maybe even just as important as having a big quarterback, maybe even more so, is having a big-time head coach in the NFL.
I totally agree with you.
Managers in baseball, there's only probably a handful of managers that are really worth something in baseball, and I think Buck Showalter is clearly one of them. I think he's worth 5 to 10 wins a year. I really do.
Yeah, and I may get in trouble from my fellow fans for saying this, but even though I said I'm a Yankee fan, if there was a chance that the Mets actually win a World Series, not only would I be happy, not only for long.
Be nice. It's only been 36 years.
Right. Can you believe I was 9 months old when they won.
Yeah, I believe it.
I'm 36.
I believe it,
I'm 36 now, yes.
Right.
No, but I would be happy for the Mets fans, even though I'm a Yankee fan, because I know how long it's been for you guys. And in my own personal way, I would actually like to see it because, baseball is not as fun as it used to be, especially with all the analytics and everything and all the crap that's going on. It's way too much. And I was never a math guy. I mean, part of the reason why I never graduated college is because I couldn't figure algebra for the life of me. But that's another topic.
I don't know. To me, algebra was a complete waste of time. I actually had to go to summer school for algebra. Right there, right at Garfield High School, right across the street. That's where I went to summer school.
Wow.
And what a waste of time that was.
You know what? I can't believe I'm saying this, but same thing happened to me. I had to go to summer school because I couldn't figure it out.
I could care less about algebra. Yeah. Algebra, geometry, this is something. These are things that were a waste of my time.
Right. Anything beyond multiplication, division, I can't figure out.
Right.
But kind of lost my point there for a second. So with the analytics and everything, I just feel like Buck is a real manager. I mean, maybe he'll use the analytics for like a tool, but he doesn't live by it.
No, he's a seat of the pants manager.
Exactly.
So, he really is.
Yeah. So what I'm trying to get to is that if they win, I would not only be happy for the Mets fans because they deserve it, but it would also kind of be like, to me in my own eyes, like a middle finger to the rest of the MLB, like saying we did this with an actual manager instead of just relying on the numbers.
Yeah. Well, look. As great a manager as Buck is, the guy's never won a World Series.
And that's another thing. He deserves one.
Right, I mean, Steinbrenner let him go right before the Yankees went off and Joe Torre turned it into a dynasty. Right. But that really, Buck was one of the keys to setting that team up. Same thing in Arizona. He managed the Diamondbacks, and he left right before the Diamondbacks won the World Series, and Randy Johnson, Curt Schilling, and all of that.
And ironically,
Bob Brenly took over there. He did a great job with the Orioles. The Orioles were actually a playoff team when Buck was there, but he has never, gotten over the hump to win that World Championship, and it would be tremendous if he won it with the Mets. I mean, there's no doubt about it.
Yeah, I definitely would have loved to see Dusty Baker win one, except for with the Astros, but that's just only because of my only Yankee.
Well, he might win one, yeah.
He might win one. I wouldn't be too happy about it. I'd be happy for him, but I wouldn't be happy that the Astros won because it's still a sore subject with me.
I understand.
I can't stand that.
I understand.
Yeah, so the podcast is going great so far. I love some of the interviews that you've been doing. This is actually pretty interesting. I haven't told you this yet, but so I went to that live podcast that you did with Bruce Carter, I believe it was.
Bruce Harper. Former Jet, number 42.
Yeah, sorry about that. Sorry, Bruce.
That's all right.
Yeah, and so I went to that live podcast, and then 2 days after that, I went to MetLife Stadium because they had the draft, and it was they did it for the Jets and the Giants and everything, and I actually happened to see Bruce there with his wife, and I recognized him because of 2 days prior from the podcast,
right.
And I was thinking to myself, oh man, it's so cool to see you, but at the same time, I was like, I kind of wish that maybe the Jets, the organization, did a better job of appreciating their players more than they do already. Because this is a guy. He's a great guy. He was a good Jet and everything, but he's surrounded by all these people and nobody recognizes him. Yeah. I don't know if it was because him and his wife were wearing masks. They might have something to do with it. But this is a guy that he was part of the organization and he still loves the organization. I kind of felt bad that I was the only one that really truly recognized him.
Well, you got to remember he played. Bruce played back in the 70s or early 80s. So I mean, it's been a long time since he played. He was a very good player. I don't think he's quite a Ring of Honor guy.
No,
I don't think he. By the way, great job by the Jets. They're going to put Nick Mangold, DeBrickashaw, Ferguson, and Revis in the Ring of Honor this year. all certainly well deserved.
Yeah, and it's funny because I'm in lockstep with you that I believe in my mind Revis is always going to be a Jet no matter what. But there's always going to be that moment where like I can't believe he has a Super Bowl ring with our arch rival.
Well, I've said this, and I don't know if you heard my latest podcast.
I did, but I
broke this down.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, how many? And just off the top of my head, how many Jet #1 draft choices wound up winning Super Bowls with other teams?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, going all the way back to Burgess Owens in 1973, he won with the Raiders in 1980. The great John Riggins, won a Super Bowl MVP with the Redskins. Can't say Redskins, but I'm saying it anyway. With the Redskins, went to back-to-back Super Bowls with the Redskins, so he won with Washington. Keyshawn Johnson won a Super Bowl with Tampa Bay. James Farrier won 2 with the Steelers.
Jonathan Vilma
with the Saints.
Yep.
And then Revis, obviously, with the Patriots.
Yeah.
Although if Pete Carroll would have handed the ball to Marshawn Lynch, Revis would not have had that Super Bowl with the Patriots. And probably the stupidest coaching decision in the history of the NFL. But that's for another day.
I mean,
let me have Russell Wilson throw a pass from the 1-yard line when I got the #1 running back in football from a yard out. But. I digress.
Yeah, apparently
but
they know better than us.
But there's a lot of Jet #1 picks, as I just said, that have won with other teams, and that always kind of bothered me too.
Yeah, and that kind of softens the blow a little bit, but it still kind of like irks me that okay, Keyshawn, it was with the Bucks, and Vilma, it was with the Saints, but with the Patriots, that makes it sting a little bit more, I think.
Well, I mean, look, the whole thing with Revis, Idzik traded him. He should have never let him go. We should have just paid him and kept him here. He should have been a lifetime Jet.
Well, I'll take
finish his career. Well, I guess he did. He actually finished his career in Kansas City, but he did come back to the Jets again. But he was, not the same guy anymore.
Well, I'll take it a step further and say that they shouldn't even let Tannenbaum go.
Never.
No.
Biggest mistake that Woody Johnson made as owner, besides owning the team because he's a terrible owner, is he should have kept Tannenbaum and Rex together.
I think they would have figured it out.
They would have figured it out.
Yeah.
They had something going. Rex actually gave the franchise an identity because this team has never really had an identity, and they still don't. I mean, they still don't have their own stadium. They never had their own stadium. Even when they played at Shea Stadium, that was the Mets Stadium. The year after the Jets won the Super Bowl, the 1969 season when the Mets were in the World Series that year, the Jets didn't play a home game for the first 6 games of the year because the Mets were playing, at Shea.
Yeah.
So they've always been second-class citizens. They played in as great a stadium as the old Giant Stadium was. It still was Giant Stadium. And this place now, you can make it as green as you want on game day. To me, it's still the Giant Stadium. It still is.
Yeah. And you just actually reminded me of something that I want to tell you. So, believe it or not, Joe, you are actually responsible for me thinking of this, the name of this podcast, First Class, Second Place. And I'm going to explain to you why. It was May 15th, 2019. And it was the day that Mike McCagnon got fired after he
what a terrible GM he was.
Terrible GM.
He turned into be one of the worst. I mean, just think of how bad his drafts were.
Right.
Oh my God,
so terrible.
Terrible.
Yeah, but so it was that day that he got fired. And then you went on this epic rant on the radio, and you were like, somewhere along the lines, you was like, this organization, they're second class. They're not even second class organization. They're more like 8th class. That's I'm paraphrasing what you said, but that's more along the lines of what you said. And then I was doing this podcast, and I was thinking about it, and then I don't know what it was, but it clicked in my head. You started saying they're not even second class. They're more like 8th class. And then something just clicked in my head, and I was like, First Class, Second Place. And, I don't know if you know, but the reason I call the show that is because I believe that I believe in my talent, and I'm confident enough to know that I feel like I could do a first-class show, but they want to.
And you're doing a first-class show here.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I have a first-class interview.
Well,
ready.
I was going to say second class. What does it say again? First class, second place.
Yeah, so
here we go.
I feel like I could do a first-class show, but they want to keep me in second place, kind of like an underdog mentality. So that's kind of where the bases come from. So I want to say thank you for the inspiration.
Well, whatever I can do, bro. I mean, I appreciate it. I look at it this way, and I don't think of myself as any kind of anything. My daughter will tell you, I'm just a guy that got lucky.
Right.
I got fortunate. I happen to know. There's a lot of useless information in my brain. You know what I mean? A lot of that. And I just, I was fortunate enough to, be behind the microphone for 25 years.
Yeah, but I actually
appreciate that people think that way like you.
Oh, yeah, of course. Anyway, but yeah, no, I think what actually made you so great in radio was, you just had that natural ability of being a salesman. I read somewhere a long time ago that, if you don't want to be in sales, don't be in the media, don't be in TV, don't be in radio, or anything. So I think you developing that trade over being a food salesman for so long, I think that's actually helped you and to develop the man that you are right now, and the status that you created for yourself in the radio business.
Yeah, I mean, I guess so. I mean, look, I think the key was that I appreciated the position I was in,
right? And
I never really took it for granted. I never really looked at myself as being, this great thing or some kind of big deal. I never ever thought of myself as that.
Right.
And I think maybe sometimes it actually might have hurt me a little bit because I never really, I just was one of the guys. That was it.
Yeah.
I didn't think I was any kind of big talk show host. I just kind of thought, hey, I am what I am.
But I think that's I think that's what works to the charm of like why people think of you the way, because you are not just some some corporate type of ESPN type of person. Like you keeping it real, and like I guess for me, you are an example of like if you keep it real and just be yourself.
Well, that's it.
You'll be a legend in yourself.
That's what it's all about.
Because if you just know how to do yourself and be yourself, and you're not like anybody else, that's how you're gonna stand out. And then you just let everything else, like your talent and your craft and everything, speak for itself. And then afterwards, it'll take you to where you've been. And that's the inspiring part about it.
Well, look, anybody when anybody would ask me, well,
how do I
what's
get in
the
the
key?
business?
Well,
Yeah.
not even that, but what's the key to being successful in the business? It's just being yourself.
Yeah.
Don't be a phony. People are going to know if you're a phony. People are going to see it.
Especially in a market like New York.
Especially in New York, they're going to see right through you. You want to be real. You got to be true to yourself. And this is something I always was. I'm the same guy. I was the same guy off the air that I was on the air. Complete same guy.
Right. Now, back then, as you are right now, were you always a big golf guy, or this is something that you discovered more later on in your life?
No, not at all. My good buddy Jerry Recco, who still, of course, does the morning show with Boomer and Gio and all.
And Al Dukes.
And Al Dukes, right. Eddie Scazzeri. For years, used to he produced my show for a while, too, in the overnight. And Jerry and I kind of came up together.
Right.
Jerry Recco was actually my producer when I did the shows at WJDM in Elizabeth.
Right.
That's how I initially met Jerry.
Yeah, and then he became your producer on the overnights.
Well, and I guess I actually got him into FAN too.
Oh, okay.
So, but he was producing the overnights, and he was a big golfer, and we'd go back and forth all the time about golf, right? And I would say, golf, it's for the elitist sport. You got to have a lot of money to play it. All this nonsense with the clubhouse and all this crap, So he said, bro, you got to come out and play with me once. So I think it was 2001. He belonged to this club. I forget the name of the club. Glenwood, maybe, whatever. So he asked me, look, come and play once with me and see, just see what it is. Mm-hmm. And I couldn't play from I still probably can't play, but whatever. But I really couldn't play in the beginning. He takes me out. We go play. It was like about a 95-degree day. I don't think we played 18. I think we wound up playing about 16 holes. So we're all done. Maybe I hit one good shot all day, maybe two. Maybe two that I actually got the ball up in the air and hit it. And we're sitting down having a drink after we played. And he said, so he was expecting me to say, I don't ever want to do this again. And I said, bro, I'm ready to play again tomorrow. like the first day, I got really hooked on playing. And it just kind of, went from there.
Right, and you're still doing it. I mean,
I play all the time. I could play every day. I honestly, I could play every day. And I'm lucky that I got a wife that's really into it too. She really loves playing, so that makes it a lot easier for me as well.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And so I don't know if you've heard my show before, but I'm actually, and I mentioned before that I like to talk about a whole different array of things. I think that more than sports, more than politics, or more than anything mental health, the one thing that I really enjoy is movies. Like I feel like I should have been a movie critic in a past life or whatever. Okay. So I don't know how much of a movie guy or a TV show guy or whatever, but do you have any, like, if you were to go into like your basement or whatever, you have all that jet stuff, was there any sport comedies that you like watching, or like if there's something on TV and you'd be like, oh, I have to watch it. Any kind of favorite sports comedies that you have by any chance?
Well, I wouldn't say any kind of comedy. I'm not a big movie guy. I can tell you that. All right, I've never been like I said, I'm a big music guy.
Okay.
As far as movies, I was never really a big time movie guy.
Okay.
As far as any kind of sport, I'll tell you one thing that I really enjoyed, and it just was on recently. This thing on the Lakers from the '80s. If you've seen this Winning Time that was on HBO.
Oh yeah, I was watching that.
Oh my God! I mean, that was. And I guess they're gonna. I guess it's only year one. I guess they're gonna. Go through the entire decade of the '80s with. All 5 of the championships they won.
Yeah. Well,
I really enjoyed that. I got to say.
Yeah, that was really good, and it's definitely going to be a continuation because they still haven't got to the part where Magic Johnson and the whole HIV thing. So it's
that's the end. That's when it was all.
Right.
That was the end. That was in the early '90s.
Right. But that's my point. Like they didn't touch that. They didn't touch that subject at the end of the first season.
No.
So it's going to be a continuation.
Well, the end of the first season was just them winning that championship in 1980.
It was the beginning of the dynasty.
Right.
Yeah. No. That's pretty cool. I enjoyed that show as well.
But I'm not a big movie guy. I mean, I'm not the kind of guy to go, I got to go see this sports movie or this.
Okay.
To me, the greatest movie of all time is still The Godfather. I mean, it's I watch it at least once a year. I got to watch it again.
Okay.
So, but
Godfather's good. I'm more of a Goodfellas guy myself.
Goodfellas was good too, but Goodfellas. The difference to me between Goodfellas and The Godfather, and The Goodfellas is based on a real reality, what really happened, the Lufthansa heist and all of that, back in, I guess it was 78 or whatever when that happened. But The Godfather made the mafia showed almost a glamorous side of the mafia.
I see what you're saying. Okay.
Whereas Goodfellas was the reality of the down and dirty of what the mafia was. Right.
Okay.
Right.
No, that makes a lot of sense. At the end of the day, it's just entertainment value. Like I feel like I could quote Goodfellas more than I can quote.
Yeah. No, I understand.
Yeah, that's.
And by the way, Ray Liotta just passed away.
Yeah. No, Jersey guy too.
Yeah.
Yeah. So rest in peace to Ray Liotta for sure.
Yep.
Definitely one of my favorite actors.
Yep.
Yeah. So all right. So we're about to close out this episode a little bit now. As I mentioned before, I don't know if you've heard any of my episodes before, but at the end of every episode, there's one question that I always ask everybody, and I don't know if this is going to apply to you, but the question that I always ask is, if they were to make a movie on your life, which actor could you see portraying your character and why? Now, I don't know if you could answer right away if you have any idea, but I have one in the chamber just in case you can't. Well,
that's an interesting thing that you asked that question. One actor that I would want to play me. There's probably a couple. I would probably say I'm going to go with this. As much as my first thought would maybe be Al Pacino, that might be my first thought.
Right.
I think I would probably go with Andy Garcia.
That's not a bad one.
All right. I think I'd go Andy Garcia to play me. He's a little better looking than Al Pacino. Not that I'm a very good looking dude, which I'm not, but so I wouldn't be Brad Pitt or George Clooney or something like that.
Well, yeah.
So I think, but he's a pretty good looking guy, Garcia. I think I'd go with him. Even. I'll go Andy Garcia. How's that?
That's a great one, and at the end of the day, there's no right or wrong answer. It's just somebody that you like. Like when I asked Ira the same question, he said Spike Lee. When I asked Kenny, he said Mickey Rourke. I thought that was a really good one.
Ira said he would want Spike Lee playing him.
Well, because of the fandom of his sports. He did mention. He did mention Kramer from Seinfeld as possible one. I think he also said Jerry Seinfeld because of his fandom, but he ultimately went with Spike Lee because he actually travels with the team, kind of like how Ira already does. So. Right. And then I thought that Kenny had a great one in Mickey Rourke because he loved the Pope of Greenwich Village.
It would be nice if Spike would actually criticize the Knick organization occasionally. Okay?
Instead of kissing Steph Curry's rear end.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Exactly.
Yeah. But all right, but that's actually a great one. I like the Andy Garcia one. Nobody has said that on the show yet, so you have that title. But just in case you didn't have an idea, one person that I had in the chamber, because he already emulates you so perfectly, is Greg Giannotti.
Oh, well, as far as him playing me as a
possibility. Yeah,
I'd be good with G.
Yeah.
G and I,
because he already does the voice.
And he knows me well. I mean, G and I, we go way back. I mean, we did a lot of stuff together.
Already, yeah.
Well, we've done, he was like my producer at one point. And, he's another guy that I kind of helped get into the business. I introduced him to my agent, the great Mark Lepselter, and he's now with Lep and all of that. Yeah, G would be good.
Yeah, but I also like the Andy Garcia one, too.
Yeah.
That's also really cool. All right, well, ladies and gentlemen, that is going to do it for this episode of First Class, Second Place. I want to thank my guest, the legendary Joe Beningo. Thank you so much for doing
Jason.
this.
Thank you so much for inviting me in, man.
Thank you.
And thank you for all the kind words and, coming to the podcast and all of that.
Oh, I appreciate it.
And hopefully
so much.
We'll both be alive when we see that next Jets Super Bowl win.
Yes,
You can only pray.
Absolutely. Now, is there anybody you want to give a shout out to before we close out?
Anybody I want to give a shout out to? She's across the way. Let me give a shout out to my wonderful daughter, Erin, because there is no podcast without her.
Right.
She does all the legwork, and things are really starting to pop for her in a lot of different ways. So I'm very happy for that with her. And let me also give a shout out to my wife, who again, probably couldn't get up in the morning without her. So thank God for her as well.
She's the real MVP.
She's the real MVP. Her and Aaron are the MVP.
All right.
I'm just along for the ride.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm just a role player. You know what I mean, bro? Just call me a role player.
Yeah. I also personally want to give a shout out to also Terry and to Aaron, and also to Andre and Mike Jones at Hackensack Brewing.
Those guys have done a great job.
Done a great job, and they're just genuinely great guys.
Yep.
I'm glad I got the chance to meet them, and we're hopefully going to do something with my podcast with them soon. Like, I know they got their own establishments going on, so I'm looking to bring them on my show pretty soon.
Good. Do that. Bring them in.
Yeah. So, ladies and gentlemen, you can find Joe Beningo at podcast.com, ohthepainpodcast.com. You can find his podcast, Oh the Pain, on Spotify, Apple, Amazon, wherever you get your podcasts. And ladies and gentlemen, don't forget to follow the First Class, Second Place podcast page on Instagram as well. And you can find me at Enrique _ on Instagram and Twitter. This has been the First Class, Second Place podcast. We out.
I love the little audience you got there.
Thank you.
Thank you, bro. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Good stuff.